5 secret ways trauma silently controls you. Welcome to this video, where we're going to explore a very important topic that's rarely discussed: mental trauma. Mental trauma is not always easy to recognize, and often we don't know that it's silently controlling our lives. Have you ever felt like your actions, emotions, or thoughts are being controlled by something you can't see? If so, it might be the result of unresolved mental wounds. In this video, I'm going to share with you 5 ways mental trauma silently controls you, helping you identify and better understand how it's affecting your life. By the end of this video, you'll realize that these unconscious emotions and behaviors might be coming from deep wounds within you, and how facing them can change your life. Let's dive in. Way 1. Repeating old behavioral patterns. Mental trauma can make you repeat old behaviors that you don't even realize. You might not notice it, but trauma from your past makes you recreate painful situations you've experienced. These behaviors might not be good for you, but they feel familiar, and that's why you continue doing them. Have you ever wondered why you keep getting into unhealthy relationships? Why do you always feel insecure, even when there's no obvious reason? The answer might lie in unresolved trauma from the past. If you've experienced pain in your family, relationships, or even in your work, you might unconsciously seek out similar situations in your current life to confront those same feelings. Let's say you grew up in an unstable family where emotional connection was lacking. You might unconsciously find yourself in unstable relationships in adulthood. Every time you feel safe in a stable situation, you might feel like something is missing, and you create dangerous situations to fill that void. Carl Jung, one of the greatest psychologists, spoke about the concept of the shadow, the parts of us that we don't want to face, the aspects of ourselves we refuse to accept. Mental trauma resides in these shadow aspects. We don't see them, but they're always present, controlling our actions without us realizing it. The behaviors you unconsciously recreate in relationships are the unresolved shadow aspects. How to recognize and heal. To recognize this, you need to ask yourself, am I repeating a situation from my past without realizing it? If you notice such patterns, don't hesitate to stop, face them, and take steps to change, stepping out of the vicious cycle. Way 2. Uncontrolled emotional responses. Mental trauma can also make you react excessively to small situations. You may feel angry, anxious, or fearful without understanding why. These emotions often aren't caused by the current situation, but are reactions to unresolved wounds from the past. When mental trauma remains unresolved, it can make you react intensely to situations that should normally not provoke such strong emotions. A casual comment from someone, a small situation at work, or a family event could make you feel extremely angry, sad, or anxious, even though the situation itself isn't severe. If you've been abandoned in the past, you may feel very anxious or even panic when someone doesn't immediately reply to your message, or when someone seems indifferent to you. This feeling isn't because of their actions, but because you're carrying the fear of abandonment with you. Viktor Frankl, in his famous book Man's Search for Meaning, explained that when people fail to find meaning in their suffering, they tend to overreact to situations that don't deserve such a response. Frankl said that unresolved suffering causes these uncontrollable emotional reactions in our minds. How to recognize and heal. When you feel your reaction is disproportionate to the situation, stop and ask yourself, Is this fear connected to a past trauma? If the answer is yes, start healing that wound rather than letting it control your emotions. Way 3. Feelings of worthlessness or helplessness. One of the most significant consequences of mental trauma is the feeling of worthlessness and helplessness. Those affected by trauma often feel they are unworthy of love, success, or happiness. They feel incomplete and incapable of changing their life. When mental trauma remains unresolved, you may easily fall into a state of feeling like you're not good enough, that you don't deserve success, love, or happiness. You may reject opportunities, turn down love, or even reject success because you don't believe you're worthy of it. Someone who has been abused in the past might feel unworthy of love and respect from others. They might accept unhealthy relationships because they believe no one will love them genuinely. Brené Brown, a renowned researcher on shame and connection, pointed out that feelings of unworthiness stem from unresolved trauma. She emphasized that when we don't accept ourselves and our flaws, we always feel inadequate and unworthy of good things in life. How to recognize and heal. To recognize this, ask yourself, do I feel unworthy of love, success, or happiness? If the answer is yes, begin to love yourself and accept every part of you, because only when you love yourself can you truly receive love from others. Way 4. Avoidance of emotions. Another way mental trauma controls you is through avoidance of your emotions. When faced with painful feelings, you might choose to ignore them rather than confront them. This makes unresolved emotions grow stronger over time. Instead of dealing with feelings of sadness, anxiety, or disappointment, you might choose to avoid them by working excessively, engaging in unnecessary activities, or even using substances like alcohol or drugs to numb the pain temporarily. Someone who has lost a loved one might try to forget their grief by never talking about them, avoiding places that remind them of the person, or even avoiding looking at old photos. This doesn't heal the pain, it just makes it deeper. John Bowlby, the founder of attachment theory, showed that avoiding emotions not only prevents us from dealing with our pain, but also makes it harder to form healthy relationships. Bowlby believed that facing and working through our emotions is the only way to heal trauma. How to recognize and heal. If you notice you're always avoiding your emotions, that's a clear sign of unresolved mental trauma. Start by facing those uncomfortable feelings instead of running away from them. Only by confronting your emotions can you heal. Way 5. Setting unrealistic expectations. The final way mental trauma controls you is by making you set unrealistic expectations for yourself. When you don't feel good enough, you might create overly high standards for yourself, hoping that these will compensate for the things you feel are missing. When you feel unworthy of love, success, or happiness, you might set unrealistically high standards for yourself in work, relationships, or even in your life overall. These expectations, though they might bring temporary success, only leave you feeling exhausted and disappointed when you can't achieve them. Someone might always strive to be perfect at work, in relationships, and in daily life, hoping that this will make them feel better about themselves. However, these unrealistic expectations only make them feel more defeated when they inevitably fall short of achieving perfection. Sigmund Freud suggested that when a person can't fulfill their emotional needs, they often look for external validation to satisfy those unmet needs. This creates a life full of stress and pressure as they never feel good enough. How to recognize and heal. If you always feel the need to be perfect and never allow yourself to fail, this may be a sign of deep trauma. Start by lowering your expectations and accepting that perfection isn't the ultimate goal of life. Healing comes from being kind to yourself, accepting your flaws, and knowing it's okay not to be perfect. Conclusion: mental trauma can silently control your life in ways you might not see. However, when you recognize the signs and start confronting them, you'll have the opportunity to heal and live a more liberated life. Don't let mental trauma control you for another minute. Start facing it today and begin the journey of healing. Thank you for watching this video, and I hope that the information shared here helps you identify and heal your mental trauma.